I'm curious, is like, because someone who's had, because it feels, I mean, it's never as simple as that, but it feels like you fell through, and it's almost like, like a baton race, every single part. But obviously, there's so much chaotic things, like, and to get to the point you are now. At what point did you have that epiphany moment where you realised that research is such a key part? Because you went to the boot camps and whatever, and you're making mistakes, learning from them, understanding real time, like what different clients needs, and trying to fit as you're learning. What was the point when you realised, actually, this client wants me to do something, but this might not actually be true, and so we have to figure out, like, what was that moment like?
I can't tell you an exact moment. I just know that, one, I've always had control issues. So, like, having to implement something that's already been designed, and then essentially having to say, hey, there's no CTA on this page, there's no micro conversion, there's no macro conversion on this page. It's like I had been working with businesses and coming from like a marketing standpoint. So when I got thrown into just the development end of things, and they were like, implement this stuff that's already been designed and you don't have any say because it's already approved, I had a huge problem with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't care if this is approved if the client's going to come back in 6 months and be like, hey, you guys made us lose out on conversions, right? Just think about it this way. 1 percentage point loss in conversions for someone who's getting hundreds of thousands of visitors a month on their website is potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost revenue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like we're directly responsible for that. And for me to attach my name to a project, like, I'm not comfortable just going and implementing whatever the designers had given me, specifically because those designers, they were graphic designers, branding designers. They're not UX designers. So at that point, I made the decision, I don't want to do that. I want to be a UX engineer.
So can I just wonder, what year was this, roughly speaking?
Sure. So 2016 was the boot camp.
Yeah.
2000, and by 2018, we were already kind of at this company.
Yeah.
So if we think about that timeline too of like trends, so 2000s, everyone basically is like, you have to have a website to be a functioning business, and then at 2015 through 18 was really like the M-Web, like designing for the mobile web. And then we kind of got into, I would say, the modern web in like 2018-ish, where it's like, you don't just need a website, but you need a great experience and everything else that goes bundled. And I think that's where we really see this boom of UX audits, people that are experts in like different verticals and like how to design websites for different regions and markets. So that I think that's helpful for the audience for context. So you were actually at a very interesting time when a lot of companies had websites that were in the process of doing redesigns to be mobile friendly, be performant, meet accessibility standards, like all that other stuff.
Right. And I think really, Mustafa, to really answer your question, was because I came from like this freelancing client work background for years and years and years, I know what the client calls are going to go like, right? And especially calls with like early prospects. I felt that there needed to be somebody who was there to directly answer questions related to the user experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we already had a development lead or a development manager that can answer the development questions. He can answer those just as well as I can. We already had like a branding design person that could answer the branding questions. But when it comes to someone then asking the question, hey, your SEO team recommended that we do XYZ on-page thing, and XYZ on-page thing means that we needed to create XYZ opt-in points. So how are we going to implement those opt-in points in a way that's not going to hurt the user experience or hurt performance? Guess what? Who answers that?
Yeah.
Well, it's usually the person, the PM that's like, I'm not, I don't know. Well, I was like, hey, we should just put me as the user experience person, even though I have zero experience, right? Because I know that I can at least tackle these questions from a user experience perspective, and I can start to build out the process that fits into the development process that I already gave you guys, right? Because the development process I already gave you guys, they have their own design process. I came in and I said, we're going to set up a design process just for websites, which is the website UX UI process. So we set that up, and over the 2 years that I worked there, I started to develop a UX audit process specifically for marketing websites. And the reason that we developed this process was because I needed to fit in my development portion of the business that I had created and the user experience portion of the business with all of the other portions of the business. And this was primarily an SEO and PPC company, which meant that they were trying to sell those services, right? So in order to make it easier for them to sell those services, it's like I wanted to develop a product that can justify a high ticket price tag for a website redesign, which is where the website UX audit process comes through. So I sat down and I developed this over time. And even when I left that company, I just kept working on it and working on it and working on it. And now it's pretty much the lead and offer that I give to anybody that comes to me that's like, hey, we want to do a website redesign. And usually I'm the only one that's like, cool, here's the step-by-step process that I take to identify all the problem areas on your website, document them, and then make sure that they're getting implemented. And I'll go and I'll show them a presentation, I'll show them a website that we did UX design, and I'll point out how we implemented each of the recommendations in the UX design. Then I'll show them how we then took the brand and applied the branding over to the UI design, and I'll show them the live website. And then to just kind of put the nail in the coffin, I'll show them the Google performance.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Design Huddle. The opinions expressed are solely our own and do not express the views or opinions of our employer.